Back now, part 2 of building the fixture for grinding the pivot arms and other things that we'll be using on the surface grinder with our air tool. Right now what I'm doing is I'm making a holder that will mount to that plate that you've seen in the first video. You'll see it as this video progresses. That will actually hold our parts the way I want to hold them. In this case, I just got a piece of 01 sitting off the shelf, squared it up roughly, building this off my head, don't have a blueprint or anything. So when I do things like that, I modify them as I go. But basically, I need a 3/4 inch slot going right down in the middle of that, and I need that to be about 800 thousandths deep. And channel cutting, this is what I'm doing when we're cutting down the middle. That's referred to as channel cutting. That's really hard on your end mills, and I got a little technique that I use in this case. I'm using indexable inserts with a die jet. People familiar with die jet, they'll know they're awesome cutters. This one, the inserts are beat up a little bit. I was cutting semi-hard steel with it, and that's where it really comes out good. But these cutters have been repurposed. The place where I used to work, when they would crash the end mill or whatever, they would throw the damaged ones away, and then because it wouldn't serve their purpose, they need everything like it is new. So I would take these and I'd cut the damaged part off, and then I'd end up having a 1-flute cutter. And actually, when they're brand new, they're technically 1 flute as well, even though it looks like they got 2 flutes on there. It's just the way they cut. So I'll repurpose these, and then they work great. Now this is a 3/4 inch one, and because the die jet, the ones we get, maybe it's all die jets, I don't know, they're metric, and we'll have to grind the shanks down to a common size. So it's a 3/4 diameter cut. The shank is ground down to, I believe in this case, it was a 5/8. And so I got a 5/8 cutter over here. It uses a little bit smaller insert, and I had to grind the shank down for a 9/16. I'll be running that in 01 at about 2,000 RPMs, and we'll be going at about 9 inches a minute. One of the things when you're in a channel cut, you want to cut your feed rates down. You want to be conservative, because you got a full contact cut. The insert's working really hard. And one of the other things that happens, if you go straight in a channel cut, drop down, straight back, drop down, straight back, pretty soon these walls are building up. As you get deeper, you start rubbing with your insert all the way up and down. So one of the techniques I do, when I get everything touched off and centered up, I'll wind 50 thousandths down, and then I'll wind 10 thousandths over, and I'll take a cut. I'll get to the other side, I'll wind 50 thousandths over, I'll move over 10 thousandths this way and take a cut, and it makes my slot a little bit bigger, gives more room for chips to come out. You start recutting chips and stuff, that's hard on the cutter too. But now I'm cutting on one side of the face as I'm going down, so I'm generating less heat on the cutter itself. So here we'll go, we'll demonstrate what I'm talking about. Just had to make sure that I didn't already make an adjustment. We should have only about 2 cuts to go. There's 50 thousandths. All the way through. I'll drop down another 50 thousandths. And then we'll pull it back. We'll push the work that way, 10 thousandths. And one thing that you want to do your slot, the deeper you go, the more it's going to fill with chips, and you want to get the chips out of there because you don't want to recut the chips. That digital in certain spots it doesn't like to engage, and so you have to crank it up a little bit and then back down to get it to engage proper. And right now we're at 800 thousandths. This side against the wall, if I really wanted to use this cutter to finish it up, I'd have to move 10 thousandths over and come back again. But I'm going to be throwing a finishing mill in from here and cleaning things up, and so that extra little 10 thousandths on the side, I'm not worried about. The finisher will clean it up. But anyways, that's just a technique when you're channel cutting that can take and make it a little easier as your cutter is going through. So I can feed down 50, get to the other side, feed down, and just move it back and forth about 10 thousandths like that, and it will greatly reduce some of the wear on the end mill and the stresses that it goes through. But you just remember when you're channel cutting, because you're cutting with so much of that material at a time, you want to reduce your feed rates from what you would do if you're doing a light peripheral cut. These die jets doing a light peripheral cut, going around the part with CNC, they just scream. They're really fast. So we'll finish the block up and we'll probably show some other features of it later on. One of the things that I want to mention too, when I'm building this, I needed actually two pieces here. I'm going to be making a cap for here. So when I grabbed the stock that was off the shelf, I grabbed it big enough and I squared everything up together. And then I took to the bandsaw and I cut this off so that I can have the actual cover piece and it will be the same size. It's all been squared up together. So if you can catch yourself when you're doing things like that, that is just one way that's going to save you quite a bit of labor and squaring up a second piece. And then you know your sizes are going to come out real good. Well, what I got to do now is I got to have some tap toes in here, some counterbore holes in the bottom. I'm going to have some flathead cap screws in here. So there's a series of holes that I'm going to need, and I want them to come out the same. So one of the things that we got with our modular jaw tooling that you've seen in some of our videos, these back jaws have 3 tap toes on both sides. And here's a stop that I made for my mill that I've had probably close to 40 years. It was just out of a piece 01, and I'm going to be making something similar to these stops that go along with this vice jaw here. But what's nice about this, I can take the smaller plate, I can stick it up in there, and I got all this adjustability. I can find whichever hole works the best. I can come over and I can set this stop up so that it's out of the way, kind of down right like so. It's a good solid stop. It's very adjustable. I can just take and loosen up this screw. I suppose you can probably even do a wing nut if you don't want it as tight, but I can adjust this in. You know, I can just keep spinning it, and I can adjust it wherever I want. I always like my parts to be real close to the middle of the vise. So, in these screws, I can just judge kind of where I'm at with it. And back that screw off a little bit. Right about there is pretty good. Just pop her in there. Tighten it down, and that thing's good and solid. Now I can drop to smaller parallels when I want to pop this part in. Let's see, grab a smaller set here. And now I got that same stop hitting and the part's the same size, so I can use the stop setup for doing the holes on both parts. So just a nice handy feature. You can use that stop on both sides. You know, you can, the set screws, this one's long enough, it'll get you about halfway. You can get longer ones if you want something that goes way across. I don't know why you would, but you can use thread rod, but you can go from both sides on this vise. So anyhow, that's going to be one of the other nice features. You got a nice handy little stop, and the way we use ours a lot of times when we're through with it, we just kick it out of the way, and then you can kick it out of the way. You're up, if you're working close to the top of the jaws, then you might want to move it all the way off, but it's like a 1/4 screw, real simple. Pop that in there and use it. So anyhow, that's just one of the other features with these new jaw sets we're making. We'll be making, again, other stops that actually work off the top with these screw holes. There'll be a lot of features, a lot of different tools as we progress. We're working on the fixture, and what I'm doing right now is I'm grinding some heavy reliefs in the corner. And the reason you want to do that is the parts that I go in there, they're going to be kind of square in the corner. So I want this relief so that I'm hitting on the bottom here and on the side. There's plenty of clearance in the edges. And by cutting the corners out like that, make it nice and wide when I set this up to side wheel it and cut the bottom on there, I can put something that's dead sharp square in there and know that it's going to hold good. But this is, again, just the method that was used to make a nice wide cut. The wheel I used was a cup wheel. It's the closest thing I had to a narrow cut, so as I was coming down it was cutting more into the wall. Makes a little bit more noise, but it works out fine. This is where your magnetic sign plates work out real good for this kind of work. This is the CBN wheel that I'll be using to do the sides and the bottom. And when it comes to side wheeling, it's hard to beat the CBN wheel. We've done a video already showing on the truing this up. This is from Continental Diamond Tool. It's a CBN wheel. It's 150 grit with a 75 concentration. It's an 8-inch diameter wheel. It's a 1/2 inch thick, and we have a 1/4 inch of material on the resin in the CBN in there, so this will last for a long time. So we'll get set up, we'll get the cutting action going, and we'll come right back. Okay, I basically just touched off, and I'm gonna side wheel going in easy. The CBN works real good because you don't get hardly any breakdown. It's very consistent. That was 2.5 thou right there in just that little bit. So it cuts very fast, very straight, very consistent. And what's nice is I can clean this all off, turn the part around, hit the side, and I can hit my simpleness real easy that way. And so we're going to cut off camera. I'm going to clean things up, come back around, and we'll hit the other side. Here we go. I just touched off after flipping it around, and looks like we got a little over 3 thousandths to go. I'll come right to 0 and we'll check and see how much wheel breakdown that I have. There, we want 1/10 pass. I stopped at 0, but I got a little float. Let her spark out a little bit. There, we'll clean her off. bring on the granite and let's see how close that comes to get to central. We're within a tenth there. The straightness of it. And you can see right there we're off a little bit. But just for a quick sidewheel job, that's really not that bad. What I'll do is I'll probably set it up and just retouch it off again, make sure that with my setup that I don't have any little elements of garbage in there. The centralness of this isn't going to be fussy. There's clearance in there, but I just made it this way in case I ever want to use the sides of it. The bottom of this, we'll see how flat that comes out. And again, the finish with the CBN on the flat is going to probably not be as good as a regular wheel, although this one is actually pretty good. But the flatness, because I've been using this quite a bit, it might not be as flat as I want it. So the finish isn't important, but the flatness is. But I can take, at this point, I can take a stone wheel and I can come in there and flatten that all out real nice. So, and it's not too bad. But you can see that with just a little bit of the bouncing, the ripple, it's not as good as what you can get with a stone. But for side wheeling, it's hard to beat. If I would take the time and true the bottom up, I can make that a whole lot better. It'd be well less than a tenth. So I'll go ahead and dress the sides out, and then I'll put a stone wheel on and just get that bottom super flat, and then we'll go from there. Well, here's our second try. Just set it up, cleaned everything off real good, and it come out much better. As you can see, we go from 0 to about 1/10. Flip it over. Go about from 0 to not quite minus 1/10. So that was just using the CBN wheel and flipping it like you saw in the video to the back rail, taking it nice and easy, doing the roughing, then had to come back and just fine feed with it. And it's real easy to get real good results, and I can get better than that if I want to fool around with it, but this is going to be way more accurate than what I'm going to need this unit for. And in fact, the primary usage, I won't even be using the sides. So we'll get back. I'm going to put a stone wheel on, flatten out the bottom, and then at that point we'll get set up and get ready to actually use this block, and you'll see how it's used. Well, here we got the little fixture that we got made up, again for grinding the angles in here, and then we can, I got one mounted in there, so it'll be for grinding the angles here, and then after I get all the angles ground, I can flip it over here, turn this back from a 45 degrees back to straight, and then I can grind this. Plus I can use this for other stuff I'm grinding. What's nice about it, it might be hard to see when I got a through hole. I got a space that's back here that's almost a half of an inch. That'll give my wheel, when I'm grinding these holes, I'll be able to come all the way out to the, start on this end, come out this way up to about a half inch in clearance for my wheel without hitting the faceplate. Right now I just grabbed this block to make a quick simple counterweight. In the future I'll make a nice block in here with a counterweight. I got slop on this whole thing. I can make this block so that it's a counterweight, and it can act as a stop, get me within about 5 thousandths both ways for indicating that part in good. And so then it'd just be a matter of sliding one part in after another, do a quick indicate and tighten it down and go. I mounted our Suburban fin fixture up on some risers on this plate, and I had to do that so that I could get a swing. You can see I'm pretty close to it from corner to corner. I'm going to grab a tape measure once and just see what kind of swing I have on there. Actually, I got my scale right here. I can probably look right here. So we got just about 5 inches to the center line, so I should be able to do about a 10-inch diameter part on this. And the Suburban tool is nice, even though there's a lot of weight on here. This has got some pretty heavy-duty tapered bearings in it, so I'm not concerned about that. Maybe with the Herrick fixture and the ball bearing and the way they're constructed in the contact, I would be a little less reluctant to put some weight on there. You're going to hit the air spindle there, Adam. Already got it pre-indicated in. I got my stop set up down here so that it'll get me real close where I need to be. And I have this set so that it's real close to, yeah, we've got to set it just a little bit less here. There we go. I got my 45-degree template going off my back rail. Let's see, I think I'm going to go in there a little bit deeper. There we go. And what I'll do is I'll just come in and out and let her spark out from here. Nice and slow. Over here there's no sizes being held. All I want is a super smooth finish for the mating part that pivots in that hole. And I don't think I'm all the way cleaned up. Well, look. Oh, I guess I am. A real nice job. You want to hit the air off, Adam? And we can see if Adam can get in there and get a close-up the best we can so that you can see the finish. It looks like, yeah, can you get right in there? That finish looks really nice. Anyways, as I say, I got the test piece in there. We'll be able to grind these, get it where we'll just slide them in and out one after another, grind that, and then turn them at 90 degrees, and we'll be able to grind these holes with a similar but smaller fixture. I'll be doing something a little bit like this, but for doing low precision sign plates, I'll grind these holes, and then I'll get that 4-inch center to center with them too. So anyways, this is the project that we've been working on, and hopefully here in the real near future we're going to have about a half dozen more of these ready to go. Thanks for watching.